You are now listening to the Finder Radio podcast.
Rock bottom. What do you do when you're at rock bottom? You find yourself at a place in your life where, you have absolutely no idea what's going on. None. And, for many people, this is a crossroads. When you find yourself at rock bottom, there are two things you can do. Well, there are more than two things, but in my experience, when you find yourself at rock bottom, you can either lay down and allow the weight of your failures, your guilt, all of the negative things that afflict you, you can choose to lay down and allow those things to crush you. The only thing with this is, if you choose to lie down and you choose to let the weight of all those negative things that afflict you, if you choose to allow those things to crush you, oftentimes it isn't a quick fate that's in store for you. What that fate entails is a long, drawn out, abysmal sort of plunge into the deepest and darkest depths of hell. That's what it is. It's an option that's a road that you can take when you find yourself at rock bottom. Excuse me, let me sip a little coffee here. So when shit in your life is not just not going the way you want it to, when we're talking about rock bottom here, we're talking about you are essentially bare bones, You've lost those things which you once had. And now you find yourself at a place where all you have is yourself. Your body, whatever health you may be in, and your mind. And your spiritual. So you can lay down, you can let life crush you. Or you can get up. And the thing that happens when you get up at rock bottom, so, you say you're at rock bottom in your life, you find yourself that's at a very dark place. Many people, when they find themselves at rock bottom, they just completely lose it. Rock bottom is not an easy thing to survive. But if you choose to stand up when you're at rock bottom, in my experience, what you begin to realize is that the only direction from the depths of rock bottom is up. The only true direction that you can take if you choose to live a life worth living. So you say, okay, I'm broken. This is where I am. The relationship with the person that I was with ended, in a complete, travesty. It was a tough relationship to be in. There was deceit, there was fighting, there was cheating, there was all the things that you would not want to experience in a relationship. You say, okay, my relationship with my parents is abysmal. I don't talk to my father. I resent my mother. Okay, you say, okay, what's the relationship with my siblings? Same thing. Dismal. You go, okay, well, what kind of friends do I have? Well, you barely have any. You may have one or two friends that you can truly call, your friends. if you're lucky. And you may say, okay, what's my health like? Well, shit, I don't have a job, so my diet isn't the best, and quite frankly, I'm not in the best of health right now. I'm not deathly ill. I'm, to my knowledge, and thank the stars, I don't have some fucking terminal illness. But still, I'm not in the best of health. And this is where I've found myself in life. Late 20s. And it's a shock because a younger version of myself, a much younger version of myself, 18, 19, 20, whatever, would have thought by late 20s I would be in a much better place, a much more capable, much more stable place in my life. But that isn't the case. And so what happens is when you find yourself at rock bottom, you go through a period of reflection, and you begin to ponder, what it is exactly has gotten me to this dismal place in my life, this place where I contemplate the ending of my own life, the one thing I know, my own existence. What has gotten me to this place? And you think about your childhood. And what happens is you begin to reflect on your childhood, and you see things that you didn't see before. And oftentimes, if you had a rough childhood like myself, wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. I'd say by Western societal standards, probably about average. But still, it came with its own, set of difficulties and afflictions. So you begin to ponder on those things, and you begin to think to yourself, how has this affected me and the person who I am today? And what happened for me was I realized that a lot of the decisions that I made as a quote-unquote adult were greatly affected by the experiences I had from childhood. Let me sip a little more coffee here, excuse me. And for me personally, I guess you could say I come from a broken home. And as I reflect on those things, a perfectly natural response is resentment. You begin to think to yourself, I was a child, I was a child, and I was under the supervision and the care of my parents. And for me personally, I look back to my childhood and I realize that my parents didn't have my best interests at heart. I look back and I see selfish acts on their parts. Extremely selfish acts on their parts. Abusive behavior towards their children, neglect, and so when you look back at these things, a feeling of resentment begins to build up inside. And if you find yourself at rock bottom, you will find yourself at this period of reflection. But what you have to be conscious of is that you don't allow the resentment that may surface to overcome you. If you find yourself at rock bottom, hopefully what you'd want is to get out of rock bottom, to save yourself, to rise from the darkness, and to get yourself where you're at a point where you're stable so you can begin to live the life that you want to live. And if that is indeed the case, something to be very aware of is that resentment, and to not allow that resentment to consume you, because it will. And you may find yourself almost hateful of your past and those who may have negatively afflicted you and your character. This is unhealthy because what happens is you begin to brood and you begin to dwell. And you begin to live in the past. And when you're at rock bottom, that's the last thing that you need to do. When you're at rock bottom, something that is of utmost importance is that you live in the moment. You know, you must reflect, because with reflection comes realization, in my experience. You reflect, you think back, you realize things, you learn, and you use those lessons and those things that you've learned to move forward in your life in a more positive and inspired direction. But if you allow that resentment to take hold of you, ultimately it will crush you. Ultimately, you will destroy yourself. So, you may have a rough upbringing. You may have gone through the tribulations of a broken home or several broken homes, Father cheats on mother, leaves you and your mother, starts a new family. And so you're torn between two different families, and you have to now begin to, incorporate yourself into this new family at a young age, which is weird. And then that family breaks up. And, you find yourself a product of two broken homes or multiple broken homes. Your mother remarries, and then they break up. So you find yourself a product of 3 or 4 broken homes. And what this can do is, for me, in my experience, this made me very distrustful of people. I think back to my childhood, and a younger version of myself was very outgoing, very funny, class clown. Had a lot of friends, very popular. But as I went through these things, families coming together, splitting up, arguments, domestic violence, police coming in and out of your home, you get close to your step family, and then, whatever happens, they're out of your life. What happens is I became very distrustful of people. And in a way, I think it made me almost antisocial. I didn't see any value in getting close to someone because, in my mind, they probably wouldn't be around for very long anyway. And to hell with people, in my mind, because people don't know what they want, and ultimately they will leave you, even if you are, their family, for something else. So as a child and as a adolescent, I found myself becoming more and more reserved as I grew older. And there was even a point in my life where I didn't give a fuck about anyone. I didn't care about people at all. I came from, like I said, few broken families. And how I responded to that was a complete introversion of my character. And essentially, I created this defense mechanism that was like, think to yourself, like an iron wall, indestructible. No one can get past this wall. Um, and I can, in looking back, I could tell people recognized it. People, because I'm a pretty approachable guy and likable guy, but I was extremely afflicted, and I could tell that people got the sense that I didn't care about them much at all. You know, when I was working, co-workers, I could tell that they got the sense that, this guy, he's a nice guy, but he's going through what he's going through. And I just didn't have the time of day. I didn't want to make friends at work. To me, I thought people who made friends at work were stupid. In my mind, and I remember repeating this often. I had like my own little saying. It was like, I come to work to make money, not to make friends. I get my paycheck and I go home. That was almost an exact quote. And I said it several times to people's faces. I'm not here to be your friend. I don't want to go out and get drinks after work. I'm here to make money, get my paycheck and go home. Because if I become friends with you guys, what often happens is you get involved in workplace dramas. So and so has a crush on so and so. And what does any of this have to do with my bank account? What does any of this have to do with me moving forward in my life? And I was at a point in my life where I could really give a shit about anyone. Women, I had no interest in relationships. What are you going to do for me? In my mind, it was like, I'm broken. For you to come into my life is just not good for either of us. You'll destroy yourself trying to get involved with me, and I'll ultimately destroy myself trying to get involved with you. So where am I trying to go with this? I think what brought me back from that was once I let go of the resentment from the past. That's where we were, resentment. So when you are at rock bottom and you going through this period of resentment that comes from reflection, you have to find it in yourself to not allow that resentment to consume you, because it will, if you allow it to, and it will crush you. It will. There's absolutely no question. If you stew in the past, in the negative things of the past, if you brood, if you hold on to grudges, ultimately you will lead a very miserable existence. So instead, what I began to do is I began to look at the past with a forgiving eye, with an understanding that no one is perfect, but my parents are just like me, human beings on earth, which is an extremely bizarre existence if you truly think about it. If you really sit down and think about what that means to be a human being, to be a human being, to exist. And not only to exist, but to exist as an intelligent creature. And not just any intelligence, human intelligence, profound intelligence. An intelligence that it's, ultimately defined by suffering, largely. And that suffering comes from awareness, from intelligence. So I began to think, my parents are people too. They have no idea what is going on. They had no idea what they were doing when they had children. They had no idea what they were doing when they were raising children. They had no idea what they were doing before they even made children. Who am I to hold them hostage, for the past, for the mistakes of the past? Because that is not who they are to this day. They're different. And I know in my heart of hearts, my parents love me. They care about me. They may not do the best at showing it, verbalizing it. But I know in my heart that they do care about me and they do love me. And if you find yourself at a place like where I was and you think about, hey, maybe I'll just end this. Maybe I'll rage quit on life. End this all, like my older brother did. To take yourself out of this world by force. What hopefully happens is that you realize that you are of significant importance to other people. And that your existence has great value to others. For me, I think about not my parents, but I think about my two nieces and my nephew who don't have a father because, like I said earlier, he chose to take himself out of this existence. So all of a sudden, I found myself reflecting on the past, dealing with, immense feelings of resentment, ultimately learning to cast aside that resentment and even hatred to a certain degree, and to learn from it, to not allow it to consume me, but instead to learn from it and to love, to move forward with an open heart and an open mind. Because ultimately, when you find yourself at rock bottom, the only way you will escape that darkness is to leave a part of yourself at rock bottom. And the part of yourself that you must leave is the useless part, the part that is afflicted, and not only afflicted, but the part that chooses to dwell in sorrow, to feel sorry for itself, to hate itself, to want to end itself, to possibly even inflict violence on others. When you're at rock bottom, you have to kill a part of yourself. A part of you has to die in order for you to become lighter, so that you can begin to climb your way out of that darkness. A part of you must die. And that part is the part, like I said, that is useless. Because what use does resentment, hatred, blind rage, what good does that do you in life? So when you're at rock bottom, you can lay down and let life just pour it on you. Just because life will do that. If you find yourself at rock bottom, you feel desperate, and ultimately what you want to happen is you just want a hand to come out of the sky and pull you up out of that darkness. But in order for that hand to present itself, you have to begin to climb. You can't just roll over at rock bottom, because if you roll over, what life does is it will fucking crush you mercilessly, indifferently. Life will continue with or without you. So lay down or stand up. Sit down or get up. You have to find that reason within yourself to continue in life. You have to give yourself righteous purpose. And it may sound corny, but it's the truth. And the truth does not give a fuck about your opinion. The truth is the truth, and you can go fuck yourself, with or without it. But the truth remains. If you want to get out of a rut in your life, you have to find what is righteous within you and outside of yourself. Cling to something bigger than yourself. Or not just any old thing, but that thing that comes from within. That innate understanding that what's going on here in life is far bigger than yourself. And ultimately, what you're a part of your existence is to contribute to the betterment of existence for all. That's my opinion. Because what I found is far too often what leads to rock bottom is, first of all, you find yourself in this world, which is much like waking up in a nightmare for a lot of people. For a lot of people, existence itself is becoming consciousness in hell. Existence for a lot of people isn't, this kind of purgatory or even, quasi-paradise where, hell is after death as well as heaven. No, for a lot of people, existence is hell. When they become conscious, they're already in hell. That's where they find themselves. That's what they know. It's all they've ever known and experienced. So, finding something that you believe in, that you can contribute to, that will in turn affect the world around you positively, is a step that you must take in order to move forward in life in a more positive and inspired manner. Now, I'm no preacher. I'm 28. I don't know much of anything, but this is just coming from what I've gone through, what I've experienced in life. There is no ascension from darkness without a not even self-righteous, without a righteous purpose. You don't get out of rock bottom because, I just got to get a desk job. You don't get out of rock bottom for anything other than the most powerful conviction to give back and to contribute to the righteousness in the world. It's the only way you get out of rock bottom. You know what I mean? And I think for a lot of people, if they have kids, that can make getting out of rock bottom easier because, having kids is a no-brainer. I mean, you can't stay at rock bottom. You got to do it for your kids. That's righteous. So that they can live, a more fulfilled life, so they can go out into the world better equipped to deal with, the chaos that is ultimately life. That's a righteous purpose right there. So when you're at rock bottom, you got to reflect and you have to learn from the past and find that thing in yourself to give yourself, find that thing to give yourself to that is righteous, Maybe you hated all the jobs that you worked before and now you're at rock bottom. Well, what did you always want to do? What did you always want to do? Well, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And, hopefully X, Y, and Z, your X, Y, and Z is a righteous thing. So you say, okay, well, I'm at rock bottom. I have nothing. I have nothing. I am naked. I stand naked before chaos. I stand naked, before life. I've got my body and my mind. And that's really all you need. Your body and your mind. Because your mind is what will set you free. Your mind, if your mind is strong and you train your mind to be strong, to be sharp, ultimately, you can't stay in rock bottom. You can't. You just can't. If you train your mind to be positive, to be righteous, to be strong, to believe in yourself. Some people, they create a mantra. Like me, I've come up with a mantra. I was doing some reading several years ago when I lived in California, and this book is called Thinking Body, Dancing Mind, and it talks about creating a mantra for yourself. And what that does is, a mantra is essentially, think of it as a prayer. And I've got my own prayer. Come up with your own prayer. So basically, something that you continually repeat to yourself. For me, it's I'm strong, I'm motivated, I will overcome, I will succeed. And I repeat it so often, I've repeated it so much to the point that it's become a constant hum in the back of my mind. It's always repeating itself. And what that does is it hijacks your subconscious. And what your subconscious begins to believe is that you are strong, you are motivated, you will overcome, and you will succeed. And once you've got that set in stone and it's become ingrained in the foundations of your subconsciousness, you cannot be beaten. Once you have updated the software, once you've updated your software and you've made it better, it's pretty fucking hard to stay in the past, to stay in the darkness. Once you find that belief in yourself and you begin to tell yourself, I am strong, I am motivated, I will overcome, I will succeed, and it just becomes this thing that you believe. You begin to act according to that prayer, to that mantra. Say it every fucking day. I've got it on my phone. It's my background. It's right next to my bed. And I'm constantly saying it. If I find myself being overcome by some negative train of thought, I immediately go to my default prayer. I am strong. I am motivated. I will overcome. I will succeed. And I don't allow anything else to enter my mind. I'll say it for 7 hours. I am strong, I am motivated, I will overcome, I will succeed. I keep telling myself it's a fucking prayer. And I believe in it. Nothing will take that from me. So you have to believe. You have to believe in yourself. You have to love yourself. And fuck staying at rock bottom. Climb out of the darkness. If you have no intentions of climbing, well, shit. You know, if you're going to be a quitter, be a good quitter. Kill yourself. But if you know that you're not a quitter, well, then get up. Don't be a half-ass quitter if you're a quitter. You know, I was thinking that to myself the other day. If you're going to be a quitter, be a righteous quitter and end it. If that's really what you want. But if it isn't what you want, and I don't think a lot of people truly want that. They cling to this thing that is all they had known, that is all they have ever known. Life. Then cling to it. Cling to it with everything you've got. Climb out of the darkness. You know, I think about how powerful light is. You could be in a completely dark room and light the smallest flame. And it just, you know, so much of the darkness is pushed away from that tiny little flame. Tiny little flame, whole room full of darkness. You know, you could be in a fucking football field sized room and someone could light a flame at the other end of that room and you will see it. And just that focus on that inkling of brightness will guide you towards the light. So when you're at rock bottom, you need to find that thing within yourself that you believe in, that you know is righteous, that you love, that you want to commit yourself to, that's bigger than yourself. And climb out of the darkness. Whether or not any of all this makes any sense, I couldn't really tell you, but this is podcast 1. There'll be more to come, but I just kind of had to get that out. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves. Stay blessed. Love yourself. And I'll be back. Stay strong. Don't rage quit on life. It's a bitch move. And what happens is you often will, if you choose to rage quit on life, you choose to take yourself out. Often what will happen, for most people, they have a lot of, they have people in life that care about them. The people around you will get spun into chaos. It's too shocking to lose someone by their own hand. For most people, it's too shocking. And what happens is they can find themselves spun into chaos. So don't rage quit on life. It's not cool. For some people, I can't speak for everyone. For some people, they may be in a position where, it's ultimately, it is your choice. And shit, if it may not even be rage quitting. I don't know. Some people may really be in a situation where that is, I don't fucking know. If you find yourself, in some fucking crack in the ground, you've fallen through in some crack in the earth and you've been there for, fucking days without food and water and no one's coming and you've got some means of ending your life, well, shit, that's your choice. But I'm talking about every day, on average, people who find themselves at rock bottom, you are not in a crack within the earth. I mean, metaphorically, yeah, you are. But you have it within yourself to get out. Let me get out of here, folks. Like I said, stay blessed, stay up. Find a Radio Podcast. Love you all. Take care.